Welcome to today's ParadigmShift.org podcast. We're joined by the publisher of the Trends Journal, Mr. Gerald Celente. Gerald, a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
So, Gerald, I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about the revelations that came out today with Greg Smith's publicly produced resignation letter from Goldman Sachs, where he came out and described his former employer in certainly less than positive light. What do you think that shows to the public exactly how these financial institutions are operated and how they view their clients?
I mean, the whole thing is a joke. I mean, we've been saying this for how many years? When are people? How much more information do people need? You know, when a guy comes out and says what everybody's been saying already, you know, since this whole financial collapse began in 2008, and all of a sudden it's news. It's a joke. You know, it's another example of how much more information do you need to know that you're getting screwed. That's all it is. And it'll go away and people will forget again, and nothing will happen. Just like with the MF Global scandal. A guy like John Corzine, he goes in front of Congress and says he can't find $1.6 billion. And they still call him the Honorable John Corzine. You know, so it's nothing. It's just another piece of yesterday's news.
Now, of course, speaking of MF Global, you had some first-hand experience there. What do you make of the news that's come out recently that a little over a week before MF Global came out and declared themselves insolvent, $165 million were transferred from their segregated accounts to J.P. Morgan Chase?
The whole thing is a criminal operation. They just also gave the hangovers, the COO, the CFO, and the general counsel big bonuses for staying on and helping to tidy things up. I mean, the whole game is rigged. How much more information do people need to see how they're getting screwed by their politicians who are, you know, in bed with the money changers? And that's all these guys are. Let's call them by their real name. They're money changers. Remember, the only time that Christ becomes violent is when he picks up a whip to drive the money changers out of the temple. So, you know, it went from money changers to loan sharks. Now we'll call them bankers and hedge fund directors.
Now, Gerald, some of these recent events in the global finance markets have led organizations such as Occupy Wall Street to say that these are failures in capitalism. But of course, what we're truly seeing here isn't really free market capitalism, is it?
No, you're 100% correct, Carl. I agree. Well, I should say I agree with you 100%. This isn't a failure of capitalism. It's a failure of morality, and morality at every level. Not only the crooks at the top ripping off the system. There was just a story that was in the media here in the States. Some guy won, you know, maybe like $50 million in a lotto ticket, and immigrants from Mexico, Guatemala, someplace. And, you know, a bunch of his buddies, you know, they used to play each week. And then he told the guys, you know, he hurt himself and he was quitting his job. And they found out the guy, you know, took off with all the dough. It's the people ripping off the welfare system. It's the person on disability that shouldn't be. It's immoral It's fighting immoral wars, and no one speaking out against it. So to me, it's a morality issue. It's not a financial issue. It's not the system in place. It's the systemic, to me, lack of morality that's rampant in society.
Well, yes, absolutely. And of course, as soon as we heard about the whole idea of too big to fail, I mean, surely that should have been a red alert for anybody that, hey, these guys aren't too concerned about free market capitalism. What is the whole idea of too big to fail?
The merger of state and corporate powers. Who did they bail out? They bailed out big corporations. I mean, you talked about, you know, Goldman Sachs. I mean, again, you know, I mean, I tell you, this stuff sets me off. Who's the head of the European Central Bank? Mario Draghi. Hey, where did he come from? He wasn't the vice chairman of Goldman Sachs in Europe, was he? that remember the Goldman Sachs gang engineered the Greek corruption game so they could squeeze them into the euro. Oh yeah, that Mario Draghi. And who's the head of Italy over there? The technocrat. Technocrat? You know, technocrat. He's a banker. His name is Mario Three-Card Monti. What was he? Oh, he's an international advisor to Goldman Sachs. And you mentioned too big to fail? Who started the too big to fail? Oh, that was Henry Frankenstein Paulson, the former CEO of Goldman Sachs and U.S. Treasury Secretary under Bush, that made up all this BS. Oh, and who's the guy that's the finance minister of Canada? It couldn't be a Goldman Sachs guy, could it? When are people going to wake up? This isn't capitalism. It's fascism. Capisce? The merger of state and corporate powers. The people have become slaves to the money changers. They're in control. They'll take you to war. They'll rob you blind. They'll spit on you and grind you up. They could care less because they're money junkies. And junkies have no bounds or boundaries. They'll screw their mother and they'll screw you too.
Now you mentioned Greece and Italy there. Of course, those are two examples where democratically elected governments have effectively been overthrown and replaced with, as you mentioned, the technocrats. Now, this is the sort of thing that maybe we would associate historically with banana republics and things like that. So is it a worrying sign to see this happening in Western European nations?
It's a bit, they're all banana republics. What self-respecting adult would look up to your guy? All these tough-talking guys. And again, Sarkozy, Merkel, Bush, Obama, Cameron. There's a great shot of Cameron. He just left the States over here at a basketball game with a hot dog in his mouth. I like to shove the hot dog all the way down his mouth. Because this little jerk, and like the rest of them, let's bomb Libya. Let's go invade Syria. You know, they are banana republics. We don't have a democratic process. It's controlled by a mafia. Oh, they have names. Democrats, Republicans, Socialists. They have names for the mafia parties. That's all these are. These are crime families. The only organization that I see that works to any effectiveness at all, and you guys, over in Ireland, of course, you're having a referendum on the EU issue, and it's Switzerland. Direct democracy. Let the people vote. Who are these little assholes telling us how to run our lives? And people look up to them and bow down, and they clap and they applaud like little children. I was driving around last week. Beautiful Sunday. I had the top down on my car, and I went by an old cemetery, and it intrigued me. All the flags, all the tombstones are very thin, and they were all bent around. And I was with a friend, and I said to her, after looking at it, I said, most adults are like little children. They don't think they're ever going to die, and they obey authority. Authority. Authority of what? Authority of sucking up, bowing down, and screwing you anytime you can, and you call yourself a politician, because that's the job that you have. There's no democratically elected governments. It's a rigged game. The only people they represent are the powerful and the people with the most amount of money that pay them off. I used to be the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate as a young man. I spent 7 years down in Washington as a guy putting together political action committees for the chemical industry, when I was growing up. And one of our chief writers of the Trends journals, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan. He could bring in the head of the CIA under oath to question him. We know what it looks like. It's only little kids that believe this crap out there.
So, Gerald, we're broadcasting from Dublin, Ireland today, and the people here are getting ready for the St. Patrick's Day festivals tomorrow. But, of course, Olli Rehn came in from the European Commission this week and put a dampener on all the festivities, stating that the Irish people needed to meet their debt obligations. So why is it that the people of a sovereign state are expected to pay for private debts when the owners of those debts are able to get bailed out? Why are people allowing this to happen?
Well, that's the question. The why is simple, because I said the money-changing mafia has taken over. I want my money. That's all they are. They're loan sharks. Ollie's just one of the wise guys for the loan sharks. That's all he is. Another two-bit loudmouth. And the people take it. And that is my greatest discouragement, is the loss of the human spirit, the fighting Irish. I was over there last June. I did a talk over in Listo. And I was talking about let the people vote on these issues. My talk wasn't well received. And I see it all over. People have lost their courage. They've lost their dignity. They've lost their respect. They let other people tell them how to live their lives. Screw you, you made a bad bet. You're not getting your money back. Sorry. It was all a game anyway. Hey, how about some derivatives? You know, Carl, you look like the guy that should have some auction rate securities and a couple of collateralized debt obligations. Step right up, step right up. That's all this is. It's a gambling game. They lost and you pay. When are the people going to fight back? After they're dead?
Now, of course, in the United States, with the previous election, we're almost 4 years into the term of President Barack Obama, and there was a lot of hope and hype when President Obama was elected, but it really turns out like not a whole lot has changed since the last guy.
Again, if you read our Trends Journal when the elections were going on in 2008, you know, we said exactly what it was and who he is. Again, I used to run political campaigns in Westchester County out of graduate school back in the 1970s. Westchester, by the way, is the richest county in the United States, and I mentioned I worked in the Senate. It was my worst job ever, watching grown men grovel all day to suck their way up to the top. That's all these guys are. They're a member of a mafia. You know, and that's what, you don't remember the guys in high school and college, the guys and gals that wanted to be class president and head of the student council, the suck-ups, the brown-noses, the glad-handers, the insincere, and the overly ambitious. Well, here you are. That's who Obama and the rest of them are. These are the people you couldn't stand in high school and college, and now they're telling you how to tie your shoes, and people are applauding for them. He's a fraud. He's a member of the mafia, and they call them themselves the Democrats and the Republicans. And what really discourages me is that people that should know better keep arguing about how wonderful he is. Oh, I like Obama, especially the women say it. And what do you mean you like Obama? You like that he had that troop surge over there in Afghanistan, sent 100,000 troops there, and then this poor guy over here that lost his mind and killed all those people. We're going to have an investigation to look to the bottom of this. An investigation? Why aren't you looking why you started this war and sent all those troops into a sovereign country? Oh, and how about Obama signing the National Defense Authorization Act? Oh, nobody knows about that one. He did it on New Year's Eve when no one was paying attention. Oh, that makes me a belligerent of the state. The military could come and take me, and you never hear from me again. They could blow my brains out or send me to one of their favorite foreign countries to get tortured. Rendition. He also pushed that one forward. He's also responsible with the Federal Reserve for pumping trillions of dollars into the banking system to bail out their buddies. Oh, Obama's just wonderful. Day one, when he got into office, I'm going to close Guantanamo Bay. Oh, yeah? You are? Yeah. Still there. Everything this guy said he backtracked on. And the people will not believe it. They refuse to. As I said to me, my greatest sadness is the loss of the human spirit and how people can live their lives like this, being ruled by others and running them into the ground and accepting it.
Now, Gerald, we're in an election year, and with President Obama running for re-election and Mitt Romney looking like the front runner on the Republican side, it's looking more and more like a conflict with Iran is becoming more than inevitable. Do we feel that Iran is going to play a big role in the world scene over the next 4 years?
Yes, and look what's going on now.